parents are now open uh, for the children to explore the startup culture, the risk culture, I would say. Do you think the COVID actually changed that, or what was the thought behind parents that they were like, okay, we'll let our kids, figure out a startup culture, or is just that it's a buzzword these days?
I think COVID did play a role because I think initially, while of course the humanitarian impact of COVID was really unfortunate for the digital ecosystem, COVID was uh, really helpful, right? Because a lot of people came online. Folks who had never done a transaction before online were forced to now come online because that was the only viable means of communicating or getting a transaction done. So think e-commerce. E-commerce would have really boosted, which means on a consumer level, if you were going to a kirana store before, or if you're going to a retail shop before, for 3 months, your only options were going to an e-commerce website or going to like all of these grofers, Blinkit, these large scale aggregators of grocery shopping, which meant you started using these applications. You also started doing transactions online. So companies like Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, all of them succeeded. So I think on a consumer level, everybody started to come online, which meant that entrepreneurs saw this as an opportunity and started building more companies. So a lot of companies spurred in that era. And when this happened, people were also online, which meant that talent was no bar. So let's say if I weren't in a Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay, Pune earlier, I would probably miss out on a good enough opportunity. But for that 1 year, when working remotely became largely acceptable, especially for smaller teams as well, it wouldn't matter if I came from, I don't know, randomly Gandhinagar, for instance, as well, right? Which is a small town in comparison to the metros in India. And you would still be able to work for a Bangalore based tech company because it didn't matter where you came from. What mattered is whether you would be able to add value. So I think that was the other thing that happened. So when consumers are all interacting with new age startups and people are working for new age startups, I think that anyway increases the penetration of the startup culture. And then there was, okay, Shark Tank making this a more dinner table conversation because largely beyond, again, the top 10, 15 cities in the country, a lot of parents will influence their children's decision of what to do further, right? And the aspiring job is a maybe a large company, an MNC, a consulting job, or the likes, right? But with this, having seen the culture, people have now become more accepting because they, okay, now use these products, they use these companies, they know about them, and they now seen validation that these companies are doing well, which means that, hey, if my son or daughter wants to actually work for some one of these companies, not even start, that's a great thing. And oh, if they want to also build something like this by themselves, that's also lovely. So I do think COVID did have a significant role to play there, and it transformed, like maybe speeded our culture in the startup space by a couple of years at the least, especially from the company's end and especially from the talent lens.